Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, a podcast to encourage, educate, and equip you to care for children and youth through adoption, foster, and kinship care. Hosted by an adoptive mom with over 22 years of kinship and adoptive parenting experience. She's on this journey with you. Please welcome Sandra Flach.
Though you have not seen him, you love him. Though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory. That is 1 Peter 1:8. I'm your host, Sandra Flach. Well, we made it. We survived the Christmas season. In just a few more days, we'll be stepping into 2026 together. Welcome to this last episode of 2025. Love to have you here on the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast. I'm always here to encourage you and walk with you on your parenting journey. I'm a mom of 8 myself, 5 through adoption. Our youngest 2 are 20 and 22, both diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome, both still living at home. So I understand the unique challenges involved in raising kids with trauma histories and prenatal exposure to substances and all the things. And I'm still doing it, still on this journey, and I'm grateful to have you along. Today, we have a foster and adoptive mom guest with us. But before we get to her, I do have a few things to share with you. Make sure you tune in throughout January when we will be doing a 4-episode series with our favorite Dr. Jared Brown on nutrition and the important role it plays in the brain and body of people with FASD, autism, trauma, ADHD, all the things. Dr. Brown will be using slides during the conversation. It'll be more like a presentation, an interactive presentation where he and I will chat about what he's discussing. So if you would like to see the slides, you can watch the podcast on our YouTube channel. You would have to go to the Justice for Orphans YouTube channel. All of our podcasts are there in the video form, but because Dr. Brown will be sharing slides, so he'll have visuals for you to see, you won't want to miss those. So you can listen to the podcast as usual. And if you find, gosh, I'd really like to see those slides, you can then go back and watch the YouTube version so that you can catch the visuals there. So it will be interesting, informative, and important content. You won't want to miss it. When we have Dr. Brown on, those are some of our most popular episodes. So he's going to be with us for the first 4 weeks of 2026, all throughout January. So tune in for that. And also, I am super excited, as you all know, if you're a regular follower of this podcast, my new devotional book, Soul Care Saturday, 52 Devotions for Foster and Adoptive Moms, is here. You can find it on Amazon. And throughout January, you will be able to register to win a free signed copy. I believe we're going to be giving away 2. So in January, starting in January, for those 4 episodes with Dr. Brown, in the show notes, there will be a link. And if you click on that link, it'll be identifiable. You'll know that it's to register to win, for a chance to win the book. And you would just put in your name, your email address, and your mailing address, because if you win, we will need to mail you a copy of the book. We won't be mailing you other things in the mail. But if you win, we'll need to be able to know where to mail your book. So you'll be able to submit to win throughout the month of January. And then at the end of January, we will select 2 names, draw kind of I'm not sure the way they'll do it, but like a draw out of the hat kind of thing. And 2 winners will receive a free signed copy of my devotional book. So stay tuned for that as well, because you won't want to miss it. And of course, we have other vital resources for your parenting journey on our website, justicefororphansny.org. Justice for Orphans is the parent organization that I founded about 13 years ago. So the adoption and foster care journey content comes under the umbrella of JFO. So when you go to justicefororphansny.org, and there's a link in the show notes to make it easy, you don't have to remember all that. But on the homepage, you will see clearly marked out where it will say the adoption and foster care journey. And when you click on that, it will take you to all of the things. This podcast is there. My blog, all of our FASD online workshops are listed there for at least throughout 2026, but they're always up there. That's where you would go to register for an online or in-person training. And you can also register to be a member of the Hope for the FASD Journey online support group. And I've got a list of recommended resources, so it's all there. So you'll want to check it out there. And be sure to like and follow our adoption and foster care journey social media pages. We're on Facebook as the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, and we are on Instagram at AFC_journey. So we'd love to connect with you there. Of course, I also would love to connect with you in person. I am booking 2026 now. And so far, I will tell you at least through the spring, I will be at the Filled Retreat. That's Jamie Finn's Foster the Family, the Filled Retreat for foster and adopted moms, January 30th through February 1st in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I believe you still can register to attend. And I will be speaking. I will be doing a breakout session on FASD. I will have an info table there. My books will be there. I will be there. I hope you will be there. Also in February 21st, I will be at the church at Brook Hills in Birmingham, Alabama, where I will be doing a presentation on FASD. And Mobilize Ohio. I am super excited about this. Mobilize Ohio is on March 21st at North Canton Chapel. I will be leading 3 breakout sessions. So an intro to FASD, a little more of a deep dive on FASD, and a soul care session. So you won't want to miss that if you are in the Ohio area. And Renew retreat, which is a retreat for foster and adoptive parents, not just moms, but parents. It is in Swansboro, North Carolina, April 30th through May 2nd. And I will be doing a breakout session on FASD there. And I will also be doing partnering with my friend and fellow adoptive mom, Terry Froman. We are going to be doing a breakout session on prayer, praying for our kids and equipping our kids to pray. So you'll want to check those out if you're in any of those parts of the country. And if you're interested in having me come and speak to your group, lead an FASD training, or speak at a foster adoptive parent retreat or conference, please contact me. My email is in the show notes, and I personally check my own email and respond. So you will reach me if you have questions, if you're just wondering how that works, if I would come to your neck of the woods. Feel free to reach out because I would love to come to you. So now to our guest. Today we have with us Kim Patton. Kim is an adoptive and foster mama living in North Carolina with her husband and 2 daughters. She writes online, has been the host of the Book Therapy podcast since 2022, and her book, Nothing Wasted, Struggling Well Through Difficult Seasons, encourages readers to recognize personal growth amidst hard times. She is passionate about depending on God as she takes care of herself and others. Please welcome to the show, Kim Patton. Hey, Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on and to get to know you, and for our listeners to get to know you. And I always love to start at the beginning of a story. So I know that you're an adoptive mom of 2. You're also a foster mom. What led you and your husband to pursue foster care and adoption?
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Instant Family, but we watched it back in probably 2018, maybe 2019. And at the time we were trying for a baby. So we had been trying for a baby for several years, and my husband and I were kind of at a standstill. It was not working the way that we thought that it was going to work, and we couldn't afford a lot of medical treatments. So we were trying to figure out what to do, and I was just praying so hard. And it just wasn't going well. And my husband watched that movie. I cried through quite a bit of it. And he, at the end, just felt really convicted to pursue foster care. So I was very hesitant and I really wanted a baby. So I was not super on board. He took me to a conference called Wait No More
Mhm.
in Florida. And we both went together, but I had a really hard time getting out of the car. I wasn't emotionally ready for what was about to happen. But at that conference, God really opened up my heart to adoption and foster care. And we weren't really sure what was next, but just a little over a year later, we were able to welcome our first daughter into our home. We found out about her on February 1st of 2020, and she was born on February 21st of 2020. So we had 3 weeks before we got her into our home and we became parents. And then 3 weeks later, the whole world shut down. So that's how our journey started. And then we adopted her sister a year later. So they're now 4 and 5 years old. And my husband kind of circled back to foster care after, we became parents and we had two babies in the house for several years and, the kind of chaos that is. He brought up foster care and I was like, are you crazy? I am barely surviving, with the diapers and the pull-ups and the tantrums and the toddler moments. And he's like, well, I want to be home. Like, I want to spend time with them. And I think that we both can together help other kids in the foster care system while we're raising our own kids. So, once again, God softened my heart and we started working with teenage girls in the foster care system. So, we work in a residential foster care ministry, and we live on campus with the teenagers in a cottage. And then we live off campus when we're off duty, and another house parent couple steps in, and we kind of share parenting duties 2 weeks at a time. So right now we're off duty, and then we'll go back on duty on Tuesday to spend Christmas with the teenagers, and then we'll come back off duty the 1st of January. So it's kind of an interesting life, but that is how it got started back in like 2018, 2019.
Wow, that's incredible. I did not realize that you were in that kind of ministry where you live with the kids for 2 weeks and then you're still on campus though when you move into a different, no, you're not.
Yeah, so this is our off-duty house. They actually provide housing. We pay rent, so we pay about half price, and we live about 20 minutes off campus. So basically, our lives are split between our off-duty home and then the cottage where we're on campus. And when we're there, we're very busy. It's a 24/7, take them to school, help them manage everything they have going on, homework, feeding them. Our daughters are there with us, so they go to the same school when we're on duty and off duty, but the routine looks a little bit different. And Kevin and I both are together all the time. We're coworkers, we're parents, we're professional parents, we're best friends. We just kind of do the whole thing together all the time. And it's been really good for our family. It's been very challenging, but we are, very present. I feel like it's a kind of lifestyle where you're all in. And it takes all of you, and it's pretty exhausting.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, is this a ministry that you came under, or did you start this type of model?
So this children's home started as an orphanage in the 1800s, and we actually have one of the main buildings that they were using for the rooms, the bedrooms. So our office staff and our administrative staff work in these small rooms that used to be kind of like apartment. And so we'll have people come back who were here in the 70s, 80s and say, that was my bedroom. and they want to see it, and it's now an
Oh,
office. And so that's like our main administrative building. And then they have 4 cottages set up and then another foster home. So essentially about 5 houses on campus. And then they have a foster care ministry where it's kind of run out of our children's home, and they can get licensed. So we have 20 or so families that are licensed foster parents, and they take in the younger children in their homes. So the cottages on campus, we have we have a lot of teenagers, I'll be honest. And then we have a few elementary age kids. But mostly the foster care homes that are off-site have the littles.
yeah. And what state are you in?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay. I think I knew that. And then um, are the teens in the program that are staying on campus, are they available for adoption? Like what is their, or, why are they there and not in a traditional foster home?
So, group residential care, we try to keep siblings together. So, right now I have 5 teenagers, and 2 of them are sisters, and they also have siblings on campus. And then at another cottage, we have a brother and sister. We have a sibling set of 3, and we have one of my teens, her brother is in the boys' cottage. So, we really value keeping siblings together. We had a sibling set of 3. One was in my house, one was in the other cottage, and then one was in a foster home because she was only 3 years old. And so we would get them together and they would have visits. So that's kind of a high value for our specific children's home, is we try to keep siblings together, and we have the ability to do that. Um, all of my kids are DSS. So they've been removed from their homes, and the plan is reunification. I haven't had a lot that I have been TPR'd. Some of them in the past that I've worked in other places, they've had a parent who has passed away. They've been privately placed, but all my kiddos right now, these are all DSS. And so it's totally out of their control. They have no say in anything. It's really hard for them because everything is out of their control. And so we see a lot of behaviors that are connected to them wanting some control, because they don't have any control. But most of my kiddos see their bio parents very often. I have some that see their parents every week, some that are supposed to, and it doesn't always happen. If the visit is not confirmed, then they're not able to have the visit.
Wow, so fascinating because I did not know that that was really the ministry life that you're living. So, thank you for all that you're doing on behalf of those kiddos. You've adopted 2. You said they are 4 and 5 now.
Yeah.
And then of course 5 teenagers that you are that are living with you, or you're living with them, right? Depending how you
Yeah.
look at it. So, our kiddos come with trauma, we know, a lot of them prenatally exposed to substances. So what has been your experience? I'm sure that you're seeing a lot of, the big behaviors. What can you share about what that journey has been like?
When we adopted our babies, Kevin and I did a lot of research ahead of time, and we were very aware of what was out there and what would work with our family. If you're thinking about adoption or foster care, at some point they kind of sit you down and ask you what you are willing to be a part of. What are you willing, like, what kind of child are you willing to accept? Whether it's like you have a lot of experience with FASD, drug exposure, special needs, disabilities. They even ask you what gender and what race. And so there's a lot that goes into just the thought process of, okay, God, if you want us to open up our home and you want us to be willing and open and available, what kind of kiddos do you want to bring into our lives? Because really, we trust you. I'm not going to trust my own judgment. So Kevin and I prayed about it, and we talked about what we were willing to accept, and we didn't care what gender, we didn't care what race, and we were open to most exposures. And so adopting our babies and then watching them grow up has been really eye-opening, because we got them at day 0. We
Mhm.
got them fresh out of the womb. They came out of the womb and they were in our arms. Our second daughter was in the NICU for 10 days, but I was there at her birth. And that was an amazing privilege. I was able to be in the room in the OR when her birth mother had her C-section, and we were laughing. I mean, she was tired, but it was one of the most beautiful moments of my life, being there for my children's birth. However, in the years that have followed, we have had significant challenges with one of our daughters, and it has kind of brought me a lot of confusion because I knew that it was possible, and I knew that it was even a high chance that my daughters were going to have behaviors based on their prenatal exposure. I just didn't realize the extent that one of my daughters was going to struggle with. So she recently just had surgery because she's been having a lot of breathing problems for the last couple years. And I've been fighting the doctors because all of them tell me, no, she doesn't need surgery. And I asked God this summer, I was like, God, I know she needs surgery, and I am the mama, and I know, and I need you to help confirm this because this is my breaking point. I'm going to fight for this surgery. And if it is not supposed to happen, I need you to stop me because this is the direction I'm going. And like 2 days later, I went on a podcast and someone interviewed me, and she was a speech therapist. And she said, absolutely, she needs the surgery because it's very obvious that her issues are related to her breathing and her sleep and her function. And I said, okay, thanks God. Thank you to the podcast host because she directly answered my prayer. And I love how God uses other women to just affirm the exact thing that I had been praying about. And I wasn't even going on her podcast to talk about that. We were talking about foster care and adoption, and she happened to be a speech therapist. So that was very cool. I feel like God has provided the strength because there's been so many days where I just say, I can't do this. I don't know what you were thinking. I really don't know what you were thinking. Like, look at me. I am not the right person. I am so weak. And I think of that verse, for when I am weak, then he is strong, and his strength is made perfect in my weakness. And I am that verse. I am an embodiment of human weakness. And yet I feel like God just keeps telling me, well, I'm here and you can do it and we'll do it together. And it's almost like he plays it off like, well, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm literally dying. And he's like, you're fine. So I just think that the challenges that have come in my life through these last 5 years it really feels like they've been impossible. And I've heard that from other foster and adoptive parents. Like, we face impossible situations. We are dealing with teenagers who are so in need of healing and wholeness, and they are so heartbroken. It is impossible to cheer them up. You can't just cheer them up. And what's also hard is the length of time it takes to build trust, to build safety, stability, security. So I'm having to prove to these teenagers every single day, I'm going to feed you. I'm going to bring you to school. Yes, you have to go to school. You may not have been made to go to school before. You are now made to go to school. This is the law. This is what we do. So I'm retraining possibly 12 or 15 years of total abandonment. And I'm not saying that I'm doing it right. I'm just saying that God has put us in a place to help these teens overcome the challenges that have been put on them by the adults in their lives. And that, to me, often feels impossible. However, every day, somehow God gives me the strength to keep going. And that's all I can say is it's his strength in us that helps us keep going.
Yeah. And I can totally resonate with that because the first child that we took in, we had 3 bios, and thought we were like we're good parents. We know what we're doing here. And then we took in a relative, a little girl who was 8 years old, and her mom had died of cancer. No dad in the picture. It's all the stories unpacked in my first book, but because she came to us, she didn't go into foster care, which was great. But we also didn't get any training, so we had no idea about the impacts of trauma on kids. We didn't, I mean, we knew her mom, we knew she lost her mom. That is a loss, that is a trauma. And we knew um, she'd been being raised by a mentally ill grandmother. Um,
Mhm.
and so I knew there was like verbal abuse, like there were things, but I didn't know enough about the impacts these things have on kids. Now I even suspect she probably was prenatally exposed to alcohol because her mom was in her 30s, had a career, she was single, she was told she couldn't get pregnant because of another health condition, and was probably, I don't know, 8, 10 weeks along in her pregnancy before she realized, much to her joy, that she was pregnant, but was probably drinking socially on the weekends. She wasn't an alcoholic or a drug addict or anything like that. She didn't have substance use issues. But she also didn't know she was pregnant, which is actually very common in the United States. So,
Mhm.
or anywhere, I suppose. But she had this little girl at 8, had all of these really hard behaviors that looked to me like disobedience, defiance, lying, and, all of the things that we were then correcting and disciplining and consequencing, all of that, which didn't help with connection. But we didn't know any of the things. And then we eventually adopted internationally. And when we brought our fourth kiddo home internationally, they're a sibling set of four. We got three, and then a couple of years later, we went back and got the younger one. And the younger one was full-blown fetal alcohol syndrome and 5 years in an institution from birth to age 5. So we knew the second we met him, we were not equipped to parent him. Like we were going to need help. And by then I had read a little bit on attachment and a little bit on FASD, or on fetal alcohol syndrome at the time online, which was dark and gloomy and scary. But after we got him home and we were like desperate for help, I found the Connected Child book. I'm sure you're very familiar with
Mhm.
Dr. Karen Purvis and David Cross's book, and that was a life changer for us. And then we started going. My husband and I we actually went from New York to Nashville for back when Dr. Purvis herself taught at the Empowered to Connect conferences in person. We did that. We went on to become Empowered to Connect parent trainers. All of those things helped. We began to understand trauma and disarming fear and building trust and connection, and applying that with all of our kids, which helped significantly. But then it was like our boys, our youngest two boys were both diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome, and there wasn't anything really out there other than like, hopeless, that they would be facing hopeless futures. And I dove into the connected parenting stuff, which helped. But then we then became teenagers. Like that's what you've got a lot of
Mhm.
those. When they became teenagers, I'm like, I don't know, the dumpster's on fire, but we have connection, we have attachment. What is going on? And then by that time I was finally able to find some stuff online, and I took a year-long course on fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, got training to first and foremost help our own family. But then the more I learned, the more I was like, oh my gosh, every foster and adoptive parent needs to know about this because it's so prevalent in our world, in our community, and it's usually not diagnosed or it's misdiagnosed. And even if you get a diagnosis, what do you do? Right. And so that became, my mission. And the more on this podcast, the more I talked about what I was learning. And it really, I started hearing from listeners like, oh my goodness, you just described my child, or, how do we handle this? And, so became very passionate about that because, like you said something along the lines of, this is not our kids' fault, right? They had no voice in this, they had no choice in this. And they're the ones highly affected. And we as foster and adoptive parents, we're pouring everything we have into them. And it's also helpful to understand the impacts of trauma, but also the impacts of prenatal exposure to alcohol and other substances. So I know it's a hard journey, and it sounds like you've got a lot of, you're experiencing a lot of that.
Yeah. It isn't their fault. And my husband and I talk all the time about their behaviors and what we need to do with it. And we talk with our supervisors. And I think part of the learning curve of being a foster parent is just figuring out how to connect with them and build relationship while also maintaining structure and stability. So there's this constant balance of nurture and structure.
Yes.
And some days you tend to be more nurturing and some days you tend to be more structure, and they need both, but the problem is they fight
Mm-hmm.
both. So
Yeah.
even though they need it, they're constantly fighting and it's a battle, but you know that you're trying to do your best, but when they don't receive it, it kind of makes me personally second guess everything that I'm doing.
Yeah. And it's hard because it's gosh, out of the five kids that we've adopted, and they're all different in so many ways. Two, we definitely have a diagnosis of fetal alcohol syndrome. There's two that I highly suspect, but we didn't know enough way back then to even, think that that's what it was, right? I think they just have some, probably effect rather than actual, the full blown syndrome. But it's been challenging, and even then, the wounds that they come with, the rejection and the abandonment and all of that adds another whole layer to it. So it's definitely challenging, and but I do see where the more yeses we give, the more connection we're able to build. Like our oldest daughter, the one who came in through kinship at 8, she's now 35. And I feel like we made all the mistakes with her because we didn't know anything. And then when her teenage years were challenging. But also her 20s were very, very difficult. She moved out. I think she was 19 maybe when she moved out, but stayed connected, but distant, and, came home for holidays and birthdays and things like that. But just really struggled. And like now, what I know, especially about FASD, all of the things that she was struggling with were really indicators of, probable prenatal exposure. Her brain worked differently. The decisions that she was making, the things that she was doing, the problems that she was having were likely really fueled by that. Um, but we just kept being connected. But then as the more I learned about, connected parenting and those principles and applying them to her, even though she was no longer living with us, I give this one example of she came home for, we were getting family portraits done, and, she agreed to come for those. And I knew it was hard for her to be with all of us, a lot of anxiety. And she had gotten a dog, and she came with her dog. And I knew right away, it was like the Lord just spoke to me like she needs the dog. And so as we were assembling outside to get ready for these portraits and all of that, it was clear she was having the dog with her in the picture. And then one of my older biological kids was like, "Mom, she's gonna have that dog. It's not even our dog." And I'm like, she needs the dog. The dog is in the pictures, right? So she didn't ask if she could have the dog in the pictures, but I knew that that's what she needed. And so it was an unspoken yes. And let me tell you, that was money in the bank, right? It did something positive in our relationship and other things, that like since then. And now, I mean, now our story is long and drawn out, and a lot of our listeners know because I was able to be there for the birth of her first child, and he was born with significant heart defect. But she wanted me in the delivery room. I spent a lot of time. They moved out of state, but I still was going. He recently passed away, which, I was there with them. I was able to go, and my husband and I flew out to where they live and was able to support them. But we wouldn't have been able to do all of those things without, um, you know, and I'm not saying that I set out every day to like, I'm going to build connection with this young adult who I have a difficult relationship with. It was just as I learned it, um, loving her, how Jesus loved her, right? How Jesus loves her, and just wanting to love her like he does. And then as the more I learned, it was just, being there, being present, saying yes, connecting, supporting. that made a world of difference. Whereas previously, when she lived home and I was raising her, we were very punitive parents, like, oh, you did this, here's your consequence. She never learned from a consequence. And that's very common with kids with trauma and especially prenatal exposure, because that's the part of the brain that often gets harmed is they can't make those links, those connection, that connection to, oh, I did this, this was wrong, this is my punishment. I don't want this punishment ever again, so therefore I won't do that behavior again. That's not how their brain works. So she never learned from a consequence, but I spent so much time issuing consequences and disciplines. I didn't feel like connecting with her. But of course, back then I also didn't know, I hadn't read the Connected Child book yet either. So I didn't know how vital that was and that I was
Mm-hmm.
doing it all wrong. But, even once she was older and out of the house, doing those things, that would build connection made a difference even then, so there's always hope with our kids. It's just being there for them at some point. Even the hardest ones, I believe, will come back around at some point because they'll remember we loved them. We were there for them. We provided for them, and I think that connection is so important.
Mm-hmm. That's really powerful. I can't wait to read your book now.
So, yeah, so it's a crazy journey, but what you're doing is so important to be able to pour into the lives of those kids, especially teenagers, because I think they're the hardest. That's the hardest group sometimes, and you're doing amazing work. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Sandra Flach, host of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and FASD educator Debbie Raymond, invite you to join Hope for the FASD Journey, a virtual support community for parents and caregivers raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, diagnosed or not. This faith-based support community meets online 3 times each month, features special VIP guests, and a private Facebook group for members only, which includes Soul Care Saturday video devotionals led by Sandra and Deb. Both Sandra and Deb are adoptive moms raising kids with FASD and facilitators of the Facets neurobehavioral model. For details and to register, visit justicefororphansny.org/hope-community. That's justicefororphansny.org/hope-community.
So, what have you learned, Kim, on your journey as an adoptive and foster parent? I know God is always teaching us. What do you feel like He's been teaching you?
Lately there's been a lot of gratitude. There's been a lot of just thank you for the beauty in my life, and recognizing the good. I'm reading Peter Mutabassi's book, and he talks about celebrating the small things. I think in this line of work, it's really easy to get bitter and a little bit just walling up your heart. And I don't want to be like that. I still want to be soft and squishy. I mean, they make me cry because I care for them so much. And I don't want to get to the point where I don't have the attachment. So I love attaching with them. I feel like a big part of foster care is attaching. And even though they leave, I've had several, leave. I'm I'm happy for them when they leave and get to go to a good place. And I also hold all the memories with me, so I don't feel super sad about them leaving because they have the whole rest of their lives to live, and some of them are going to better situations. I had one leave in the fall, and she was amazing. She's such a unique girl, and she was only 14. And I had her for several months, and we attached really well. And saying goodbye to her was hard, and I still think about her, but I'm not grieving the loss of her because she's with family and she's in a different state and she's with her siblings. So she's got a lot of life left to live. And I think that God has just given me so much peace And being able to see the beauty of that. Like I was able to be in her life for several months. I was able to write her little notes and give her hugs and tickle her and laugh with her and make fun of her, and she made fun of me, and eat with her. And it was just, there was some challenges, but for the most part, this was her first time in foster care. So things were really, really new for her, and she did pretty well. She participated in our Elevate group on campus where they get to ride dirt bikes, which is awesome. You can stick some teenagers on dirt bikes and they get to ride around in the woods and just live that off-road experience. And it's really, really cool to be able to have a campus that allows them to do that. And so she got bumped and bruised and, fly off the handlebars, whatever. She didn't break anything, thank goodness. But it was just good for her to experience those things. So I love that we had those memories. A lot of what God is teaching me is about just my family, just my husband, our relationship, respecting him and honoring him in front of the teenagers, as well as we make decisions and as we live this life together. Sometimes I feel like women can get kind of control freakish, and we just want to do what we want to do, and we think that we know what we're doing, and so we kind of push him aside and say, like, never mind, I got this. Like, I don't really need you. But I do need him. I need him desperately. And I can't just take advantage of the moments that I really need him and then push him away the other moments. I have to honor and respect his leadership. I have to show the teenagers that I honor and respect his leadership. If he makes a decision, I try my best to back him up. And I feel like that is reciprocated because he does back me up when I need it as well. And, if our babies go up to us and ask me a question, and then they go right to daddy and ask him the question, he's like, we are one flesh. You cannot play us. And the teenagers will be like, I need Miss Kim. I need Miss Kim. And he's like, how can I help you? And they're like, I need Miss Kim. How can I help you? And he's trying to teach them that, like, I am also here to help you and here to serve you. And a lot of our teenage girls are very wary of men because men have hurt them in the past. And so they automatically don't trust him just because he's a man.
Right.
And they automatically trust me. But they also automatically have a lot of emotional struggles with me because I'm a mom figure, and they have emotional struggles with their mom figures in their life. So there is so much complexity, and I feel like God has given me a lot of grace, and other people are speaking into me and telling me to have more grace for myself because I'm so hard on myself and I want to do things right. And when I make mistakes, it's just really, really hard to bounce back. So you talked a lot about regular discipline and punitive parenting and consequences. And so we're constantly having to balance the consequences, the discipline, and what do the teenagers need? They need connection and they need to be able to trust us. But at the same time, they also do need consequences, because how else are we going to teach them if they don't have natural consequences and then also privileges being taken away? But we have to pay attention to how they respond to it, because if they're not responding to it, it does no good. And, we can say we're going to take away their allowance, but if they don't care, they're like, sure, take my money, I don't care. I'm like, well, that's clearly not working. So what else can we do? My brother's a social worker, and he tells me that he tries to reward with quality time together. And he tries to really focus on the connection of, hey, let's spend this time together. And that is challenging, I will admit. It's something that I'd like to incorporate in the future. But right now, I have a kid who gets out of preschool at 1:00 every day. And when everybody comes home from school, I have 7 kids. So having quality time or one-on-one time is very challenging. The closest thing I can get so far is I've been helping them clean their rooms, and I've been trying to spend some time in their rooms, just being present and helping them kind of organize their things and put their clothes away. A lot of my teenagers say they need emotional support because they just can't get up the motivation to put those darn clean clothes away. They get the laundry done, and like all of us, we struggle to actually put them away. So I guess those little things of how can I show them that I care about them, just with a simple thing like sitting on their bed and talking about their stuffed animals and listening to them talk about their day and try to help them put their clothes away instead of just doing it all for them. Um, I I have made significant progress with one teenager by spending some time in her room and also doing her hair. She's been wanting me to braid her hair often, and I try to tell her that I love braiding her hair, and she has beautiful hair, and I love just getting to connect with her in that really small way. It's a huge honor and privilege to have a teenager sit at your feet and she lets you French braid her hair in the morning. It's just, that's the beauty that I really try to hold on to.
Yeah, I love that. Kim, you chose the verse that I opened with from First Peter 1:8. Let me read it again. Though you have not seen him, you love him. Though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory. What does that verse mean to you?
God is so invisible, and that is hard because we want, you know, Jesus came down, Emmanuel, God is with us. Jesus came as a baby. And I was explaining this to my daughters the other day. They were talking about baby Jesus and stuff. And my 4-year-old was not quite understanding that he's not still baby Jesus. He he is, you know, with the Father now. And um, so Jesus did come down and he was human, but we were not there. We missed that era. So God being invisible and yet me saying, I will trust you. I will trust in something that I cannot see. When I do devotions with the teenagers, when I talk about faith with my kids, when we do communion at church, when we pray, we are putting our faith in something invisible, which is kind of unheard of. We don't do that normally. We have to be able to see it, touch it, know it, trust it. And I'm teaching my kids and my teens that, yeah, we don't see him. He's in essence a mystery.
Mhm.
And yet we feel him in our hearts. We feel him in our daily actions. You know, the teenagers are affected when they go to church and they say, I like when we do communion. I like when we can write our prayer request and nail it to the cross. I like when we can light a candle for someone that we're thinking about. Those are all very tangible things, and they love expressing their faith, whatever faith they have. I don't really know their faith. And I don't think they do either, to be honest. But we're showing them that day after day, we are thanking God for food. We're thanking God for provisions, and we are showing up for each other. And it's like the way that I show faith in an invisible God is the same way I show faith that I'm going to keep showing up for these kids.
Mhm.
Because what are they giving me tangibly? It doesn't matter. Like, they're not giving me anything except for a beautiful relationship. But I am living in faith for the one who I believe in and I trust completely. So because I'm showing up for them, I'm showing them I'm doing what God has laid out for me to do in faith. And I don't know that we all make that connection, but I want to show them that I'm here for a reason. I can show you love because I get unconditional love from the Father and he loves you. So that's where I get the love from. One of my teenagers asked me the other day, she's like, why would you love someone, or how do you love someone that you don't even know? And we were about to walk into another place, so I didn't have any time to really expound on it. But I just said, I love them because God loves them. And so I love them with the love that God gives me. So God loves me, and through me, he can love someone else and I can love someone else. But I'm not conjuring it up on my own. So that faith of receiving his love and giving it to someone else is the way that I can love complete strangers. The day you come into my home, I'm making sure you have your clothes. I'm like making sure you have feminine products. I'm showing you your room and showing you your bed and showing you the schedule, asking you what you like to eat, trying to make you feel comfortable, because the invisible God who has called me and is giving me the strength to do this work loves you. And so I, in faith, am going to love you, even though I don't know what the future with you looks like. And if I knew, I probably would be very hesitant to welcome you into my home. But that's the beauty of it, is God says, I will be with you and I will take care of you. And I just have to keep having that faith in the invisible God, because that is my life's breath, and I can't function without that.
Yeah, we can't function. We can't do this without him, right? That's for sure. So you have some great resources, I know, for foster and adoptive moms. Tell us about your books. I know you've written Nothing Wasted, Struggling Through Difficult Seasons, and then A Journey to Motherhood, A Place for My Heart to Call Home. And then now you have the Foster Mama Journal. So tell us about your resources.
I'm coughing. Teenagers got me sick, and my kids got me sick. I started writing books several years ago. So my first book was 2018, and that was my memoir of growing up in Michigan with my brothers. It's called The Cub Among Bears. And then the books that you mentioned have followed after that. So Nothing Wasted is like a 10-year span of infertility, poverty, and putting my husband through school, working in a job that I didn't really feel at home in, waiting for babies, and then adopting. So that kind of covers a lot. Struggling well is this thing that I've been clinging on to, because I do struggle, and I want to struggle well. Um, Foster Mama Journal is my most recent book. I'm super excited about that because I wrote it for foster mamas to keep track of the kiddos in their home. And then also there's scripture in the back that I took from a book by Jen Lin. And what I love about the journal is I can take the scriptures in the back, I can journal in the middle of the book, or use the gratitude journal and just use those scriptures to pray over my family. So I've loved using that, and that is specifically for foster mamas, just to process through everything that they are going through in one specific place. So I keep that journal for myself. I keep it at the cottage. And when I have to process through things that are going on, that's where I turn to. And then I do have another book coming out next year, and that's going to be just kind of more along the lines of struggling well through foster care and adoption, in this calling that God has on our family, and the feeling of inadequacy of, man, I don't know what he was thinking, and I don't know how exactly to do this, because I feel like half of the time I'm not doing it right. But just how God uses us to minister to to kids from hard places, and all of the blessings that come with that, and also how we feel inadequate, but how God uses us anyway. So my website's kimpatton.com, and I also have articles and essays that I write. I don't share a lot on social media, but I do have some pictures up there of my adopted kiddos, and I would love to put pictures of my foster care kiddos on there, but I just don't feel like that. I don't feel like I can right now, even if I blur their faces out, or even if I put hearts in there. I'm just having a hard time with that, because I love them so much and I want to share all of the stories. But God has me in a place right now where I'm just living it, and then I'll write about it later.
There you go. And your book's available on Amazon?
Yes.
Yes, great. And I will make sure that there's a link in the show notes to kimpatton.com, so that our listeners can learn more and find out more about all of that and find your great resources. And would you, as we close here, because I feel like we could talk forever, but I know you've got to get on to your conversation with Peter Mutabazi, and that he's a gem. You'll love talking with him. But Kim, as we wrap up, would you share some words of encouragement for our foster and adoptive parents who are listening?
Oh, I I'm sorry. First of all, I'm sorry for the things that you're going through that are just the brokenness of this world, because it is rough. Looking at what our kids have to experience is rough. So I just want to say that I see you and I feel you, because I am sick and I am tired and I am confused as well. And so I know what it's like to just lay in bed and feel like, man, I don't know if I can keep going. But at the same time, you know in your heart what God has called you to do, and He will tell you what's next. And He will either give you the strength to keep going, or He'll tell you when a chapter is closing and it's time to move on to a different season. So I just pray that you will trust His voice. And if He has encouraged you to stay put and to raise the kids in front of you, even when it's not easy and even when it feels like you can't go on, I encourage you to listen to His voice. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. He will lead us and guide us. And I constantly have to remember that, because sometimes the circumstances are so loud and in my face. And I just think, this is inhumane. This is absurd. This shouldn't happen. But I wake up the next morning and God's like, yeah, get up and go love them. And I'm like, okay, what else do I have to do today? That's my job. That's what I do. And I'll rest next week when I have a few minutes. So fulfilling the calling that He has placed on your life is no small thing. And it is a daily battle, but it also, the reward of laying your head and on your pillow at night and saying, like, I did what God called me to do today. And yeah, I made a few mistakes. And yeah, I maybe got a little frustrated and raised my voice. Or yeah, maybe I wasn't very nice to that social worker because they really ticked me off. My mama bear came out. That's fine. It's gonna happen. The important thing is you can confess and repent and get back up and try again. But what we're doing is war, it is battle. And I have to remind myself all the time that not really about me. And I can't mess up so bad that God's gonna just quit on me. So I can't quit on these kids. But who else did I have to fight for them? So just keep fighting. I'm sorry. I know it's hard. I know it's so tiring, but just keep fighting.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Kim, for sharing your story and for all that you're doing on behalf of kids in foster care, especially those teenagers that are so hard, that you and your husband stepped into this as like full-time ministry. So thank you for all that you're doing, and thank you for being on the show.
Yes, thank you for having me. I loved it.
And I am so grateful that you tuned in to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, where we are here to inspire and encourage and equip you for your parenting journey. I hope that you were encouraged by my conversation with Kim Patton. Be sure to check out her website, kimpatton.com. Her books are on Amazon. And she also hosts a podcast, which we didn't even get a chance to talk about. And I believe, let me just see, it's the Book Therapy Podcast. So I'm going to check that out myself. I believe it is geared towards foster and adoptive parents. So check that out. Everything's on her website, so feel free to go there. And don't forget that next week, we will begin our nutrition series with Dr. Jared Brown. And he will be with us all 4 weeks in January to talk about nutrition. And at the same time, in the show notes each week in January, you will see a link where you can register to win a free copy of my newest book, Soul Care Saturday 52 Devotions for Foster and Adoptive Moms. And of course, we have our other great resources from the Hope for the FASD Journey community that you heard about in our commercial, as well as our online and in-person FASD workshops, and FASD parent coaching. You can learn more again by going to justicefororphans.ny.org/AFCJ, or go to our website and you'll see the whole page of resources for the adoption and foster care journey. I'm super excited that I'm able to serve you in this way, because I'm a mom with 5 adopted kids, all with trauma. And again, our youngest 2, both diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome. So I spent years trying to figure out what was going on, even after we became trauma informed and equipped and all of that. And really found out that we needed to understand this whole FASD thing and how alcohol, prenatal exposure to alcohol, affects the brain, and really alters the structure and the function of the developing brain. So we have very specific resources and training for parents and caregivers caring for kids who are prenatally exposed to alcohol and other substances. And sometimes as foster parents, adoptive parents, we don't even know what they were exposed to. But once you begin to learn about FASD, I hear from so many parents who say, oh my goodness, you just described my kid. Like, we've been searching for answers and you just hit the nail on the head, kind of thing. So make sure that you check out our resources. In January, I will return to offering one free Intro to FASD online workshop. It's a 1-hour workshop. I offer it free every month, different day, different time, trying to make it accessible to everybody. And you'll learn about the impact of prenatal exposure, the symptoms, and how to take a brain-based approach in your parenting. And I'll provide you with lots of tools to help you help your kids. I also offer a 3-hour session, as well as I believe it's starting February 19th, we'll be kicking off our deep dive into FASD, where I use the Facets neurobehavioral approach. And it's 5 3-hour sessions. It's like every Thursday night, I believe, for 3 hours, 5 consecutive Thursday nights. So you won't want to miss that one, because that is the most in-depth course that I teach. It is up on our website. All of these workshops are up on our website that you can go register for. Everything is on there. Also, please subscribe to this podcast so that you will not miss an episode, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parents as well, so that they can be encouraged and equipped too. So again, I am so grateful to have you along for the journey. Happy New Year, and I'm looking forward to diving into January with you and Dr. Jared Brown. So stay tuned, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, brought to you by Justice for Orphans. We hope you were encouraged today. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so they can be encouraged too. Be sure to find and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Justice for Orphans. And check out our website for vital resources at justicefororphansny.org.